Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining my webinar today, Fun Activities Using Remote-Controlled Devices. I'm very glad that you decided to join. The webinar is listed as beginners, but I know from last year that we had several people on the call that were participating for quite a while, and I'm glad that they joined in, and hopefully you'll be able to get some more ideas. This is my second webinar for AbleNet, and just wanted to let you know that the one that I did last year, about a year ago, Fun Activities Using Basic Switch Technology, is a recorded webinar now, and you could always go back to that and listen to that, and I hope that you do. All right. I wanted to go ahead and let you know, too, that I don't work for AbleNet or any of the companies that I'm going to mention, but I just happen to like the products and just thought it would be more helpful if you knew where I got some of the things from. I love to share ideas and hope that you'll share your ideas today, too, and you could even do that using the chat room. Also, if you have questions, type them into the chat box, and we'll try and help you with those. Some of the things that we'll be going over then: remote control devices and everyday use, transmitters and receivers, remote devices, remote communication between devices, commercially modified battery-powered toys, self-modified battery-powered toys and devices. And we're also going to be talking about some wall-powered devices too. And then at the very end, I'll save a little time for questions. But if you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to type those in, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. The purpose of remote switch technology: I had worked with children in the school system for many, many years, and that's why I always think about how you can include children with special needs in classroom activities, improve motor function, learn cause and effect. But really, technology can be adapted for any grade or any age, and it's fun. So when we're talking about remote technology, I think sometimes people are a little afraid of remote technology or technology in general, but actually it's an everyday use. The important thing to remember is that with remote technology, you're going to have a transmitter and a receiver. And the transmitter and receiver must be compatible in order for the device to work. Generally, you think about being able to use remote technology for about 30 feet, but I did notice that a lot of the AbleNet products are about 60 feet, and even some of the other products I'll mention today are 50 feet. So really, it ranges quite a bit. The advantage, of course, is no wires. A disadvantage is that it must be able to communicate reliably. It has to be in sync, and it requires power supply at both ends. The picture of the cable remote is just to remind everybody that we do use remotes all of the time. And in fact, there probably isn't any person around that hasn't used their TV remote. And again, it's just a way to say, don't worry, don't be afraid of remote technology. The little fellow that you see here is Linus from the Peanuts gang. And I love Hallmark things. They always seem to be coming out with something different. With this little guy, I don't know if you can see the teeny switch he has there, but you press the switch and music plays and lights go on. And this was available from Hallmark last year. Now the idea of the remote technology comes up when you look at all of these different pieces. There's the Snoopy and the Charlie Brown and the Woodstock, Lucy and Linus. But the cool thing about this is that one actually activates the other one. So once you get one thing going, then the other's going. And again, music and lights, and just through the presentation, if you can be thinking about, I wonder how I can use this with a variety of children I work with or a variety of clients. Now in this picture, you'll notice that all of the devices are close together, but that's just for picture purposes. Because again, these devices, at least at the Hallmark store when I first found these guys, they were all over the store, and one, you'd press one and it would activate, it would communicate with another one in a different part of the store. So sometimes you'd have all of these things going at one time, and it was really pretty fun. Now this one here was available about 3 years ago, and this is, again, remote communication between devices. This was the Disney wireless band, and again, the idea is that you activate one, but then the other ones started to work. And again, thinking about how fun something like this would be if you place them in different parts around the classroom or different places around, say, the client's room, they'd be able to have lots of fun things going on with just really the press of one switch to get everything else going. In terms of cost, people always like to know about how much things are. These were maybe about, $16 a piece, but all of us know to look at the half-price sale. And so I was able to get all of these at half price, which I think is always kind of fun. Hallmark seems to be always coming out each year with something else that's wireless, and I'm really excited to think about what they may be coming out with this year. I love going to garage sales, and I'm sure that a lot of you do too. But again, working in the school system, you're always looking for bargains. This little fella was a remote-controlled toy, and that little piece in front of him, the bucket goes up and down and makes noises and go forwards and backwards. The thing, though, at garage sales that I learned the hard way is that just because you buy the toy that's a remote toy, you have to be careful to find the right transmitter, because not all transmitters will work with all remote-controlled toys. Here's a little remote-controlled helicopter that I found, and this has been a lot of fun to work with. You can probably see that the little helicopter in the forefront, and then would be the receiver. So the transmitter, which is the black device there in the back, you move the levers and it goes up and down and forwards and backwards. These you can find in many different types of stores and malls, and they cost about $50, but you can get them, oh my goodness, from $15 maybe up to $50 or more. It really depends on the size and the function that you want your remote-controlled toy or device to do. This is another toy that I found. This one was actually at Walgreens. I love looking around at Walgreens and different types of stores that may have toys in them. This particular one is Remote Thunder Tumbler. And you can imagine how the children that I work with just loved him. Again, with the little levers there on the side. So on the side then, the black device would be considered the transmitter. And then you have the controls where you can move this particular toy forwards and backwards. Lights go on, and you can even turn him over. So you have your transmitter, the black device on one side, and then the receiver is in this particular toy. So again, transmitter and receiver. The next device has also been a lot of fun to work with. This, again, is available from, or was available, but of course you can find anything on eBay, but this particular device is remote switch and receiver for wall-powered devices. So we're going to talk a little bit now about wall-powered devices, not just battery-operated devices. And so this is the Treeluminator. Okay, now again, for purposes of trying to show everything in one picture, we have our Treeluminator, which the kind of red and white device on top is the switch, and then you have the red device there as being the transmitter. Over on the side then you see the white receiver, and I just went ahead and put some lights into that. It originally, in one of the Hallmark movies, was actually something that turned on the Christmas tree. And so in the movie, when you pressed it down, a whole Christmas tree lit up. Okay, so let's look at this a little bit. So as you can see, you press down on the switch, so you're pressing down, and then after you press down, it sends a signal over to the receiver. The receiver's on the side, and lights go on. With this particular device, not only do the lights go on, but there's also sounds, and it turns all kinds of things on. Well, I had mentioned before that with any device, you want to really look at the product. And one reason I like this is because even in the picture where you have your fingers pressing down on the switch, you could even use just the palm of your hand to be able to press down. And it takes very little effort to press down on this particular switch to have something work. Well, that was, as you can imagine, that was a lot of fun during Christmas time. But then always wanting to think about how else can I use this device. October came around and went looking through Walmart and found this electric lighted pumpkin. So again, always thinking, what else can I use these devices for? I went ahead and got my Treeluminator out, put the pumpkin into the receiver, and you can probably tell from this picture that it's plugged into the white receiver. The extra cord is just an extension cord, which is plugged into the wall outlet. So this just gave me more flexibility to be able to have, to be able to move the pumpkin around to different spots. All right, so you have your Treeluminator there. You press down on the switch, and within just a fraction of a second, the pumpkin lit up. And this was so fun for the children that I worked with because, again, they were used to the Christmas tree part of it. But when it came around to October, they were so excited to see that it could be used in a different way. And here it was lighting up the pumpkin. So really, it's just your own imagination to come up with different kinds of ways of using these different devices. Now the next device that you see here, the remote wall outlet switch, can be used to turn on just a number of kinds of things. And the reason I was looking for this was actually my husband was trying to find a way to turn on and off a light by his computer. And so we searched online and saw this particular device from Walmart.com. This has been the handiest thing. And again, you can use this for so many things, say in a home or in a classroom. So you can see on the left side, you have your receiver. and on the right side is the transmitter. This particular product is called ZAP, Remote Outlet Switch. And again, one reason I wanted to highlight that these products are available out there commercially is because we always look for things, of course, in the different catalogs, but if you can find something easily commercially, that's always a plus too, because that way you can tell parents, you can tell caregivers that you can get these things, just go online, search online, and be able to find things either at stores or easily something like this at Walmart.com or something similar. The reason that I've really been enjoyed playing with this and looking at this is because in this one particular box, you have 5 wall outlet receivers, switches, and it has 2 remote transmitters. So you're not just tied down to having just, say, the light go on. If you wanted to, you could have put in another receiver and have a blender go on, or another receiver have something else go on, and with your one little transmitter, you can just press 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 and be able to activate 5 different devices with the one transmitter. And I believe the cost of this was just about $30. The next device I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with, the PowerLink 4. Well, when I first started working with the PowerLinks, I just would use the traditional jelly bean switch. I'm sure that many of you have done that. So you hook your traditional jelly bean switch, into the side, and then you plug your PowerLink in and are able to turn on blenders or a number of kinds of things. But then I discovered that not only could you use the Corroded jelly bean switch, but also the jelly bean Beemer. And so the Beemer, of course, can do everything that the switch can, but you're not tied down to cords or wires. Now we're going to talk about a couple things that are just a little different. This remote number pad came about because the regular education teacher was working on bar graphs and things in front of the classroom using a laptop computer and wanted to show the students how you could do bar graphs and a number of things, and wanted them to come up one at a time to type their numbers into the computer. So in this particular case, they were working on heights of sunflowers. So they would come up as the weeks went along, and we're typing in that the sunflower had grown maybe 5 inches or 10 inches or a number of inches. Well, we had a student in the classroom that had a very difficult time with mobility, and the idea was, how could we find something where they could just stay in their seat and be able to type their numbers in too, because of course they wanted to be part of the classroom activity, but didn't have to go through the process of maneuvering around the classroom. So that's where this remote number pad came in. So the student didn't have to leave the desk, but was able to participate in the classroom by just typing in numbers from this remote pad. I'm sure many of you have seen these different keyboards that plug into the computer, and there's so many different types now where there's large letters or contrasted letters, and I just wanted to make sure that there was a remote large letter keypad keyboard that was available also, because again, it just gives you more flexibility if you don't have to be hooked in to the computer. And you can see from this one, the letters are larger and there's contrast, and again, these can be found easily online. this is probably something that you have seen pretty often, these little adapted toys from AbleNet. And again, thinking about how my own horizons have expanded, where I would have in the past just used the jelly bean switch, to put it into the plug there of the pig and direct access, be able to, have the pig move backwards and forwards and make noises. But again, knowing that you have something called the Beemer, and in this case it's actually the twist Beemer, where the Beemer on the left is able to activate the small receiver, which then of course activates the pig or any adapted toy. So here's a little bit better picture of the Jelly Beemer twist transmitter and then the original receiver. But it's been so nice to be able to have that flexibility of a remote device. In this particular case, you've got your Jelly Beemer twist transmitter on the top there, and then the SLAT receiver. So that also gives you the option of being able to press down just like you would a regular switch, but then you can also press down once and it will latch, and then won't release again until you press again, or being able to do it with a timed device. In the next one, this is a reminder, I think, to all of us that you can have a self-modified battery-operated toy, and almost any battery-operated toy can be turned into a remote battery-operated toy. So again, the flexibility that, of course, you can still adapt your little battery-operated toys and put a jelly bean switch, but you can also use your remote switch. On this one, I thought it would be fun to just review a little bit about how you can adapt a toy. And you can see where in this case I have my Daisy Duck and turned her over there and put the battery interrupter between the battery and the connector, and just use my little notching tool there to be able to have a space for the wire to go. And this is just a little bit easier, better picture of the battery device adapter. And it comes, with AA and D. And this is another battery-operated toy. And again, as you can see, I've got the regular jelly bean switch in there, but you can use a remote switch. And it's just wonderful, again, to think about how far away a person can be for these devices to work. In the beginning, you noticed I had said about 30 feet, but the more I looked into it, for instance, like the AbleNet ones can go 60 feet, and the Treeluminator that I had mentioned before are 50 feet. So it just gives you this whole wonderful opportunity to place things anywhere in the classroom or just about anywhere in the environment. All right, well, we're going to go back a little bit here now to our toy that I purchased at a garage sale, which of course is wonderful, except there's things that you always have to watch out for when you buy toys at garage sales. This particular guy did have the right transmitter, so I knew it should work with this toy because I had a compatible transmitter and receiver, but it wouldn't work. So after I started playing with him, opened him up, well, he was missing batteries. That was one problem. But then the other problem is you might be able to tell from the picture it was corroded. So again, thinking about things that you get at garage sales, they can be wonderful, but sometimes you may have to do a little bit of problem solving to be able to get your devices to work. In this case, it was an easy fix. I just used a little Phillips head screwdriver to get the cover off, but then I just needed to be able to clean out that corrosion. And that's something I think that beginners especially don't think about, that you don't have to throw the toy away, that maybe just with a little bit of cleaning, you'll be able to get that toy to work. So first tried alcohol to clean out the connections there. And because he was a little bit more corroded than usual, I had to use a cleaner called Brasso. And that's just something you can pick up anywhere, but it's just a little bit stronger cleaner that in this case worked out really well. So the things that you want to consider when choosing remote toys and devices, cost always can be a factor, but then I think durability is also one of the big things, because you may be moving these things around from place to place. They may be a little bit more delicate than what you think when you're first trying them out, so think about durability. Ease of controls, will your client, will your student be able to move the switches back and forth? Size of buttons, that's another thing. I love the little transmitter that we've been using to turn our lights on and off in our little room, but the buttons are small. So again, that's something else to consider. And your power source. Of course, with batteries, you need to make sure that the batteries are fresh, and the transmitter, say in the battery-operated devices, you'll have to have batteries in the receiver as well as the transmitter, as well as the toy. But then, say if you want to use something from the wall-powered units, you'll have to be able to, maybe think about getting an extension cord or something. So just some things to think about. In the school system, we always have to have documentation. I came up with this little easy-to-use form where you can see that you have an activity on the side. You might be able to just easily put down, toy able to be activated, dates along the top there. But will the client need physical assistance? Will they be independent? Do they do it 3 out of 5 times, 1 out of 5 times? But a little chart like that is just so handy to use when you're trying to explain progress or even lack of progress to caregivers or to teachers. At this point, I'd like to just see whether anybody had any questions that they'd like to type in. And if not, I'm going to go ahead, because we just have a couple minutes left. I'm going to go ahead to the references. Let me just see if there was a question. Okay, there seems to be a question, but it doesn't appear on my chat board, so it may be just something for our for Deb to answer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to references. And again, I just listed a few things because I'd like to be able to just let people know that ablenet.com, Hallmark.com, eBay, Toys R Us. Toys R Us was a fun thing for me to research even for this little webinar today, because they have a host of remote-controlled toys and devices, but just really had a good time researching them. Okay, let's see. There is one question that says, I find it very challenging to keep the battery-operated toys working. Well, that can be a challenge. I know that you're right. Sometimes the connections are very fragile, and that's one thing that when we talked about durability, and you're choosing a toy, that you have to look very closely at. And I have been really, just to throw out, I've been really pleased with AbleNet products because I've taken them to so many different schools, to so many different locations. So I don't know if you've tried the AbleNet toys, but they have worked out really well. The other thing, though, like say with my little dinosaur, I did find out that when I adapted him and made that notching hole made that hole just a little bit better. It seemed to last longer. So I don't know, those are just a couple things to throw out. Okay, well, if there, I'm just trying to make sure that if there's any other questions, and let me just go back to this last slide question, just so that I have question slide up here. Well, again, thank you so much for being part of the presentation today. And I hope that you do take a few minutes to maybe listen again, review some of the things. And take advantage, if you haven't, of the various recorded webinars through AbleNet, because I know that I've gone back to them and listened to some of those several times. So thank you very much again for being part of my presentation, and have a wonderful day.